Hey guys, welcome back to the BuzWeaver channel, and we have reached a point that I feel it is time for another unique, impromptu, just out of the blue kind of video for you guys, because this has become so vitally important, especially to all of you guys who follow me on alternative tech, on Gab, on Minds, Odyssey, Rumble. It is so vitally important because I understand your guys' frustration. I understand your guys' irritation and annoyance. So I would ask you guys to take that sensation, share this video, like, and comment as we did in the previous video, or the video where we specifically talk about Time Magazine, which I'm going to do again here. Thank you for the support. Be sure to like and share this, guys. This is going to be so vitally important. Department of Justice issues warning to states conducting election audits against violating federal law. So we have now reached a point where the federal government, the Department of Justice, is getting incredibly concerned about the direction. And what they're really concerned about, what this all comes down to, is influence. Social media, as you guys know, my motto is the Democrats working alongside the mainstream media, tech giants, special interest, and activists participated in the most incredible form of, we'll just call it social manipulation, because I don't want to get into conspiracies. I don't like conspiracies. I don't keep up with the typical conspiracy type theory elements. I won't go into any more detail. I'd rather just stick to what I can show you, what I can demonstrate, and what we can talk about, because we can talk theory all day long. Joe Biden's Justice Department has issued new guidance regarding the ongoing election audits, making at least the second time the Department of Justice has poked its nose into the 2020 election audits. Guys, look, let me say this as plainly as I can. Now, doing this unrehearsed with no notes, this is completely off the top of my head, because I see your guys' frustration every single day, and it's so important that everyone remember that we look at Molly Ball's Time Magazine article, 6,683 words of gloating, football spiking, to demonstrate that she and her friends in the media, who were working alongside the Democrats and the tech giants, she had to make this article to spike the football, to shove it to President Trump and to President Trump's supporters. She essentially outlined exactly what they did to, in simple terms, interfere with an election. That's the simplest way I can put it. Now, I have to word what I say very carefully, but it's so vitally important that you guys at least hear me out on this, because we got outmaneuvered is what happened. The reality is we were outmaneuvered, and every time people try to use the fraud term, it's just going to backfire on you, because this was all part of the plan. The plan was that in any form of contest, when it came to fraud, was going to be easily dismissed by judges, because it was up to their discretion to decide on whether or not it would have made any impact on the election. And I know what you guys are saying, but look at the demographics, look at the metrics, look what was presented. And I totally understand. I totally understand the frustration. I totally understand the annoyance. But the reality is the Republicans and the GOP, and perhaps Trump supporters and the American citizens, were outmaneuvered. Now, what do I mean by outmaneuvered? Well, if we do look at Molly Ball's article, and I encourage you guys to read it, it is archived, of course, because in case they try to modify it or change it or remove it, it is kind of interesting when you try to go to this, how you have to prove that you're not a robot, because this is so vitally important, and it's very, there's a lot of controversy here. So there was a conspiracy unfolding behind the scenes, one that both curtailed the protest and coordinated the resistance from CEOs. Both surprises were the result of an informal alliance between left-wing activists and business titans. The pact was formalized in a terse, little-noticed joint statement of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and the AFL-CIO published on Election Day. both sides would come to see it as a sort of implicit bargain inspired by the summer's massive, sometimes destructive, racial justice protest in which the forces of labor came together with the forces of capital to keep the peace and oppose Trump's assault on democracy. The assault on democracy, the one whole damn entire day on January 6th, which it was terrible. I didn't like what happened. I understand, again, the frustration, the annoyance, the irritation, as Molly Ball outlines exactly what happened. And man, did the AFL-CIO eat it. Oh, are they steaming and stewing that they were coerced and manipulated? Well, I don't know about coerced and manipulated. I'm sure they was probably trying to work out some deals, but we saw what happened with the pipeline. We're seeing what's happening now with gas prices, food prices, just the general nuance that I could go into. Oh my gosh, could I go into a million thousand things that Biden is doing right now that's actually causing problems in the United States. But it may be fair to me for me to just say this. The cabal of people that Molly Ball talks about here, the AFL-CIO, the CEOs, the activists, special interests, all of them worked together. There's a good reason why we kept seeing the riots on television out of Portland, out of Seattle, out of Minnesota, and other parts of the world, because they needed these people, and I'm just going to call them useful idiots, to make it look like people were so disturbed by the fact that Orange Man Bad was in office that they were going to destroy the country. Isn't that ridiculous? These people are willing to burn down their own cities out of their own anger, bite up their nose to spite their face. So counterproductive, so counterintuitive out of their rage and anger. So, if you guys have not read this, by all means, check it out and or watch the video, which I'll put down below this video and or in the description. So, I know you guys are upset, but listen to me carefully. We were outmaneuvered. That's all there is to it. If you go to Timcast and put in PA mail-in ballots, he goes into several videos. He goes into this very distinctly, very concisely, point by point, law point by point, everything. He goes into all of it right here, all the way for an entire year in his Timcast. And then if you go to Tim Pool, he does the same thing by looking up mail-in ballots. Now, I thought about going through this and disseminating all of it, but there's so much content here, guys. There is so much that was going on in the background to make this election possible. Here's the curious and interesting thing. It has been argued and suggested by fellow commentators that the idea of changing the laws in 2019 was not to try to get Joe Biden to win, but to have the election contested. So the idea wasn't so much to see if the Democrats could win an election by a dispersal, as it were, of mail-in ballots and or absentee ballots, but the idea was to create havoc and chaos, which we already know the left is extraordinarily good at. But as you can see, what happened was the pandemic happened. And when the pandemic happened, this allowed for the Democrats to take advantage of it, like we know from Rahm Emanuel. Never let a crisis go to waste. So they didn't. So not only were they changing laws in 2019, they also took advantage of the pandemic. And that's why we're seeing a lot of these rule changes, or the Democrats trying to push for the voter legislation, because they saw how extraordinary this opportunity was to do this mail, this, what is it called? The mail-in sweepstakes thing, where they send out the sweepstakes to win. Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes. That was the objective. The idea was they send out mail-in ballots and or absentee ballots en masse, hoping that people who would not otherwise make the freaking effort to go and vote would vote from home. And parents who may have adult children at home, they would tell them to fill it out. Did you fill it out? And the reason I say that is because here in Georgia, up to the election, we would have canvassers coming to the door at least 2 times a week. Or I'm sorry, not a week, 2 times a day. Now, I've covered that on my own channel. So the idea was these people would come up, they'd have their phones, and their phones would all be lit up. And what they had there was registered voters. So what they were doing is they were going door to door to registered voters. They didn't know who was living there because they would ask me, are you, sir, excuse me, are you the resident of this house? you can imagine what I said. I'll I kind of keep it friendly, but I explained to them in uncertain terms that it wasn't their business whether or not I was the registered owner of the house or whether I was a registered voter, much less whether or not I had voted, but I already had in June. So it wasn't their damn business. But they would come, and sometimes they wouldn't like knock on the door or ring the doorbell. What they would do is they would leave these little flyers. And if you haven't seen my videos on that, I have it on my channel where I showed you like my entire kitchen table covered in flyers. And not, of course I couldn't record them coming to the door and stuff because that would just be weird. But suffice it to say, I would see them with their glowing phones coming to the door, knowing that a registered voter lived there or lives here, right? And whether or not I gotten my application or my absentee ballot. Why? So they could say, did you vote? Did you vote? Did you vote? Wink, 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 the right way? In addition, the law says that drop boxes need to be located at election offices or inside early voting locations. And it says the boxes can only be available during the hours that early voting is available. If the governor declares an emergency, pandemic, the boxes can be located outdoors. In 2020, drop boxes could be located outside, available 24 hours a day. Now, here's the thing. I was trying to find it here because it's really kind of my point, but you guys see right here. So what they did is, I'm probably going to have to look it up by search because I can't find it. Here it is. As you can see here, the provision will dramatically reduce the number of drop boxes available in some large counties. Fulton County, for example, says it would go from 38 drop boxes in November's election to 8 in the future. So they were supposed to have 8, but they went to 38 drop boxes. I'm not particularly concerned about the number of drop boxes, but the fact remains that the idea was they took the pandemic, terrified people, suggesting that if you went out and voted, oh my gosh, think of the havoc you could cause if you went out and voted. You could cause grandma and grandpa to die, which was never really an issue because, as we saw today, and I'll talk about in the Friday vlog, the Department of Justice is dropping all investigations on Cuomo and Gretchen, just dropping them. They're not going to investigate them. So now I know people will raise the argument that, oh, well, it was a pandemic, so you can't have people running around on public transportation and this, that, and the other. Well, it didn't seem to be a problem when the activists are out there, and it doesn't seem to be a problem at the border. So why would it be any more of a problem if people went out and actually made the frickin' effort to go and vote in person? Now, this is the MARTA subway system here in Atlanta. This doesn't show all the buses, but this is Metro Atlanta right here, all within the 285 circle. So it's not like these people can't go and vote somewhere in person. Like, if you're making a frickin' effort to go and vote. Now, Georgians registered to vote can also do so by absentee ballot. Make sure you're registered. Fill out and submit an absentee ballot application. So here it is here on the computer. If you have a computer, you have a laptop, you have a government-issued telephone, if those exist. I don't know. I've not looked into it. But if people can apply for an absentee ballot or a mail-in ballot, guess what else they can do? They can apply for a Georgia ID, which would be required to be able to do a mail-in ballot. So it's very basic requirements, as it says here. There's no age limit. Any person old enough to sign their name or make a mark indicating their legal signature can apply. And of course, you can just start here. And if you still can't figure it out, or maybe you don't have a government-issued phone or whatever, guess what you can do? You can go to your local post office. Everyone has a post office, at least within their area. Maybe get your cousin, brother, sister, whomever, to take you to the post office so you can, get your ID. And then you can get your mail-in ballot, or you can get your absentee ballot. So there are ways to do the right thing. No one's being suppressed. There are ways to do it. It's all a matter of you taking the frickin' initiative to do it. It's all there is to it. What the hell are they talking about? Voter suppression. Apply for an ID card right here, Georgia Department of Driver Services. You can go to the DMV and get an ID. Not everybody's going to go to the DMV and get a driver's license, but you can go to your city hall and get an ID. I looked it up. I didn't want to show that information because obviously it's, where I live and, whatever. You know what I mean? I'm not going to show like personal information about where I can go in my area and county to get IDs. But suffice to say, here in Georgia, you can get a state ID, you can get a voter ID, you can get a veteran ID card. You can get an honorary veteran ID, you can get a handicap ID, and an indigent ID card. So, Where's the suppression? There's no suppression here. The idea is to hoodwink people into thinking probably, we'll have to see because we're already hearing about the Delta variant, all right? We got the Epsilon strain coming around the corner too. And we already know, like I covered in Friday's vlog, LA is closing down some of its restaurants and so forth. And Australia is already in lockdown, in full lockdown again, which, well, parts of Australia, I should say, are in lockdown. The UK is still battling it out. France is protest everywhere in France over this. Over the vaccine cards. And don't you find it interesting where everybody's talking about suppression of ID, but you can go and get a vaccine card, right? I mean, if you get your vaccine, they give you a vaccine card. If you got to have a vaccine card for whatever damn reason, you shouldn't in the United States, under the Fourth Amendment, of course, but you can get a vaccine card. So I don't know where this suppression's coming from. It sounds like it's all Democrat nonsense talk, trying to keep people afraid, trying to keep people... Well, would it be fair to say they're just trying to make it like a publisher's clearinghouse, as simple as possible? A like-dislike vote world is what we're coming to. Likes and dislike world, where you don't have to make any kind of an effort to be able to vote. All you got to do is just get your little mail-in ballot and just vote away. And vote a particular way, because we're going to go door to door. And they're already going door to door. I just saw an article from Cuomo today saying that they were going to go door to door over the vaccine. So... You want to talk about, it's interesting how the people talked about how President Trump was, a fascist, and we had a fascist regime. Well, I mean, what's more fascist than saying we're going door to door, or carry your vax card to be able to do this, that, or the other. And it's not like you couldn't stand up for yourself if the situation ever came to you having to defend your position as a citizen, which is insane. But it would be very difficult for them to take you to court and whatever, or arrest you for whatever, because, I mean, he's not going to stand up in court. If you have a competent attorney or a competent judge, he's going to say, well, they got constitutional rights. This is just as absurd. It's unenforceable. So, if you can't, so what does the government do if they can't enforce, or they can't create laws fast enough, or they can't mandate? What do? Peer pressure and bullying. And that's what we're seeing, peer pressure and bullying. At the highest level of government, peer pressure and bullying. This whole absurd voting deal, guys, we got outmaneuvered. We got complacent. The GOP, well, maybe not you and I didn't get complacent. We could see what was going on. The GOP was complacent. They kind of took bury their head in the sand. If we don't pay attention to it, it'll go away. Well, it's not going to. The activism online is huge. And it isn't like all these people have big, tremendous influence. It's because the mainstream media and the Democrats give the small voices the platforms to be able to speak. Why do you think they're censoring? Do you think they're censoring because they're concerned about people's feelings? No, they're censoring because they need the smaller voices to rise to the top. They don't want rational, competent, cogent, common sense thinking people potentially doing videos like I'm doing right now that could potentially convince someone that they're being manipulated. And think about this for a minute. Who do the Democrats think they are when they have to be the arbiters for minorities? Think of the insult that would be for a minority to think that they couldn't get a job, they can't get work, they can't function in this society unless the Democrats come to their aid. How demoralizing is that? How does that show respect and dignity to people when you say you can't function without our help? We're going to help you because you can't function. You can't vote properly, so we're going to come and help you because you're being suppressed. Absolutely absurd. All right, guys, so that's my rant. I hope I was able to explain it coherently enough, because it's difficult to put all this into one video, I guess you could say, because this could last forever. But suffice to say, the GOP got complacent. Maybe we got a little complacent. We should have done more. It's hard to say what we could have done, considering that censorship is real. It's continuing to happen. And as I cover in the Friday vlog, we're going to be seeing that the tech giants are going to be using hashes, code, to be able to just shut down people more efficiently. So share this video, like, subscribe, comment, let people know what actually happened in my little outline. I'm not an expert, right? I'm just telling you guys what I've been seeing in the 3 years that I've been covering all of this. We saw the establishment get involved, get active, get people out there on foot. The Democrats had canvassers out there. They had people all over the place here for Warnock and Ossoff. I mean, oh my gosh, it was absolutely insane. We had people from out of state walking around registering people to vote. It was just crazy the amount of effort and resources that were put into their little canvassing door-to-door thing. Well, if they're going to make that much of an effort, then why not go and pick up your constituents from their areas where they're suppressed and take them to the damn ballot box then? If you're that determined, send buses out. They've done it before, the little rental buses. Go get your buses and go pick the people up and drive them to the polling station then. But the pandemic. Do you guys think there's going to be a pandemic protocol in 2022? Let me know down in the comments below. All right, guys, so I've taken up enough of your time. If you haven't already, be sure you're subscribed to the channel. Below the video, you will see various links to my social media. Make sure you're following me there. I'd love to hear from you guys, and I will see you in the next video.